February 17th, 2025 is a date that I don't think I'm ever gonna forget. I don't think I'm ever gonna forget that day, because on that day, my life changed. On that day, I stopped running to cope and I started running for growth. On that day, I became a brand new version of myself. Because on that day, I ran my first ever 5K trail run. This 5K trail run was organized by Bishop's Events, and it was a hard 5K. I did that 5K without really that much training. Yeah, I did the 5K and I finished it in about 33 minutes. It was a brutal 5K, but I persevered. And that day I learned that our only real limit is our mental limit, not our physical. Yeah, sometimes we may feel like we can't continue, but let me tell you something, and that is a lot of times when you feel like you can't continue, you're only 40% finished. And after I completed that first 5K trail run, I ran my first 10K, I completed my first half marathon. And after both of those events, I decided I gotta go all in. And I signed up for my first ever marathon. At this point, I was only 15 years old, but I decided, you know what, age is just a number. People told me I was crazy. People told me I would get injured trying. But let me tell you something. On May 18th, 2025, at only 16 years old, I completed and I finished and I crossed the finish line of my first ever marathon, the Santiago Marathon, at only 16 years old. It was brutal. It was hard. People didn't believe in myself. At certain points, I didn't believe in myself. But at the end of the day, I learned something, that is, we're capable of so much more than we think. And if we believe in our dreams, we can achieve anything. So after training, after grinding, after not giving up and not letting other people's limits be my limit, after you may think that I would be on top of the world, I would have this crazy high, I felt actually really sad, really alone, because I felt like I accomplished a absolutely gigantic accomplishment, yet people didn't realize. Now, I didn't run the marathon for others. I ran the marathon for me because I wanted to grow as a person. When I first started running, I was running to cope. I was running to just clear my mind and cope with all the things I've been, going through my head and going through my mind. But eventually I, switched that and I started running to grow. I started running to grow as a person, and that switch happened on February 17th, 2025. But after the marathon, I felt like, okay, I accomplished the goal. Now what? And after feeling, pretty down, I decided, you know what? I'm gonna sign up to a half an ultra marathon, a 25K trail run. I was like, I don't know if I could, finish this race. I don't know if I could actually do it. But 3 weeks before the race, more or less, I signed up for the race and I started training. Started running in the mountains, 5K and 10K and 15K and 20K, and I remember all these crazy freaking days. I remember I had 8 days in a row where I would run 10K or more every single day. I ran over 80 kilometers in 8 days, and I started adding this crazy amount of kilometers on my legs. I remember I had like 50 kilometer weeks and then 70 kilometer weeks. Like, I still can't believe that I ran that many kilometers in just 1 week. I had a week where I ran 70 kilometers in 1 week. That's absolutely insane. Yeah, it didn't end there. Because on July 6, 2025, I woke up in the morning and I drove 2 hours with my mom to Valparaiso. And I ran. I ran up a mountain, ran down a mountain, and it was brutal. It was hard. I truly thought that I really thought that I couldn't finish that race. Yeah, with the help of this guy named Francisco, big shout out to him. He motivated me, he hyped me up. We finished the race together. And I finished the race in 3 hours, 26 minutes. I finished my first ever 25K trail run in 3 hours, 26 minutes at only 15 years old. And whenever I was training for this trail run, I learned something about myself. And I learned something about life, and that is the small can conquer the big. No matter how small you are, no matter who you are, no matter how old you are, you can really accomplish anything. I remember I was on top of this mountain and I was looking down. I was looking down at this mountain that I climbed, and I was like, man, I'm small. Yeah, I climbed this mountain. I saw people climbing up and I was like, they look tiny. Yeah, they're climbing this mountain. They're gonna get to the peak, and they're gonna accomplish what I accomplished, because the small can conquer the big. So after running my first marathon at 16 years old, after completing my first and finishing my first 25K trail run at 16 years old, what did I learn? I learned that we're capable of so much more than we think. I learned that we should not allow other people's limits be our limit. I learned that our only real limit is our mental limit, not our physical. And I learned that if you believe in your dreams, you can achieve anything. Remember that, and stay strong. Never give up.